Beginning in the 1920s, communism slowly started to take over in Bulgaria, and it's reflected in its September uprising. This wasn't a completely successful event for the communists. However, they didn't give up and continued with various government assassination attempts. They were defeated numerous times by the Bulgarian government, causing many communists to ultimately flee Bulgaria for the Soviet Comintern. In the beginning of the 1940s, the USSR went to Germany for permission to include Bulgaria within its control because Bulgaria was already a part of the coalition in support of Germany during World War II. Bulgaria stayed neutral in order to preserve their diplomatic relations. The politics were changing in Bulgaria, and the People's Court was created in 1944 in order to remove the state's enemies who were now the anti-communists. Bulgaria's constitutional monarchy was abolished with a plebiscite vote, or a vote of the people, in 1946. Bulgaria then became known as the People's Republic of Bulgaria with a very highly centralized form of government. The Communist Party held all authority, which leads to Bulgaria following the same route that many other Soviet states had followed. The court was created to prosecute the leaders that were in charge during World War II. The first trial alone sentenced 100 top officials to death. Soviet troops entered into the country in September of 1944, which slowly ended its ties with Germany. Then the first communist Bulgarian Prime Minister, Georgy Dmitriev, who was an exiled communist, returned to Bulgaria in 1945. The election of the first communist prime minister became a major victory for the Communist Party. The former Bulgarian royalty was forced to leave, with Dmitriev declaring Bulgaria as the little brother of the Soviet Union. In 1947, the closest ally Bulgaria had was the Soviet Union. By 1948, Bulgaria was under complete communist control. This communist country closely followed the Soviet model, with the complete restriction of the education system along with social welfare. Dmitriev held massive government purges, and it is estimated that 30,000 people were killed without trial. Ethnic Turks and Jews were forced to leave the country. Religious freedom was forbidden, and private property was non-existent. Once the Soviets essentially took control over Bulgaria, there was opposition, and the Bulgarian Agrarian People's Movement, otherwise known as BANU, wanted a national free election and immediate removal of communist leaders. BANU had a political say in the state, which brought a stalemate between them and the Soviet Union for a year between 1945 and 1946. BANU's Nikola Petkov became the leader of the anti-communist coalition, and a new constitution was written for Bulgaria. This new constitution centered on their main political struggles. It guaranteed equality, freedom of speech, and other basic rights. Once the United States ratified a treaty with Bulgaria in 1947, Petkov was arrested for leading the coalition, and Bulgaria was suddenly declared a communist state. From 1950 to 1953, Volko Chervenkov made Bulgaria's government into a one-man communist dictatorship very similar to the USSR's government. The economy was also similar to the Soviet Union's. This country now followed 5-year plans, and the economy remained primitive and agriculturally based. Volko Chervenkov remained the prime minister in 1954, but lost his power and released the political prisoners from labor camps. Chervenkov resigned in 1956, and in April of 1956, de-Stalinization in Bulgaria began. Bulgaria joined the Warsaw Treaty in 1955 with 7 other Eastern European nations. After Stalin's death, censorship relaxed, but there was not a true organized opposition to the Soviet rule until 1989. De-Stalinization proved some hope for an end to the Cold War in Bulgaria. In 1998, the final communist prime minister resigned due to the influences of democracy strongly ignited over the Eastern European countries in the 1980s. The new opposition leader organized a new constitution which drafted a parliamentary democracy in 1991. The country of Bulgaria was now no longer communist.